Have you ever experienced that peculiar sense of guilt that creeps in when you are idle, yet your mind refuses to quiet down, constantly reminding you of all the tasks you should be tackling? It feels as though your mind is engaged in a fierce internal conflict. One part yearns for respite, while the other vociferously demands attention to your responsibilities. Somehow, instead of achieving either rest or productivity, you find yourself frozen in place, unable to act, resorting to endless scrolling. You tell yourself it will only be 5 more minutes, but those 5 minutes morph into 50, and before you realize it, the entire day has vanished. Does this scenario resonate with you? If so, you are not alone. Here is something often overlooked: this feeling does not imply that you are flawed. It does not suggest a deficiency in discipline, motivation, or ambition. Rather, it indicates that you are overwhelmed. Consequently, avoidance appears to be a safer option than taking action. We tend to perceive laziness as a moral failing, something to be ashamed of. However, that is a misconception, likely absorbed from a society obsessed with relentless productivity. The Stoic philosophers held a different perspective. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, once stated, "You do not love yourself enough, or you would love your nature, too, and what it demands of you." Laziness is not inherent to your nature. Instead, it is your nature resisting something that feels misaligned. It is your body and mind signaling that something is amiss. The more you disregard this signal, the louder it becomes. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist who dedicated his life to exploring the depths of the unconscious mind, believed that the aspects of ourselves we repress the most, those we label as negative, do not simply disappear. Instead, they retreat into the shadows and begin to exert influence from the unconscious. Therefore, when you label yourself as lazy, when you berate yourself for a lack of productivity, you are essentially pushing yourself further into a state of paralysis. You become your own adversary, constructing barriers between your current state and your desired destination. This approach does not lead to success, it perpetuates a state of being stuck. The fundamental truth is that this situation is not about laziness, it is about a lack of alignment. You possess energy, ideas, and aspirations, but without clarity, direction, or an emotional connection to the purpose behind your actions, your mind enters a state of shutdown. This is not an act of rebellion, it is an act of self-preservation. The mind avoids what it perceives as meaningless, and the body follows suit. Seneca, the Roman Stoic philosopher, once cautioned, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." When your attention is scattered, your energy dissipates along with it. You are not lazy, you are unfocused, undirected, and misaligned. Fortunately, this is a problem that can be resolved. Therefore, let us discard the labels, cease calling it laziness, and instead recognize it for what it truly is, a sign. It is a sign that your system requires realignment, that your goals need clarification, and that your energy needs a target. Once we accomplish this, once we stop blaming ourselves and begin working in harmony with ourselves, everything will transform. This is not about hype or hustle culture. It is not about relentless grinding or shaming yourself into action. It is about learning to move with intention, to align your actions with your values, to become someone who acts because it is meaningful, not out of fear of falling behind. We are about to explore 6 effective strategies that can help you achieve precisely that. These are practical tools designed to help you reset your rhythm, shift your mindset, and regain control. When you understand the underlying cause of your perceived laziness, you will cease fighting against yourself and begin moving forward. If you find even a modicum of value in what we are creating together here, there is a simple, cost-free way to support it: simply click the subscribe button. Let us begin. How frequently do you find yourself uttering the phrase, "I am just lazy," almost as if it is an immutable part of your identity? Many people are unaware of it, but that single sentence is not harmless. It carries significant weight. It is akin to branding your own forehead with defeat before you have even begun. And your mind is taking notes. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you will do," but I would add that you also become what you consistently tell yourself you are. Therefore, if you repeatedly reinforce that label, do not be surprised when your actions begin to align with it. Your brain listens attentively and begins to construct an identity around your words. Here is a truth that was likely omitted from your education: laziness is not a personality trait. You were not born with it. You did not emerge from the womb resolved to repeatedly hit the snooze button on life. What we commonly refer to as laziness is usually something else disguised: fear of failure, fear of starting, exhaustion, lack of clarity, burnout, or resistance. Acknowledge it for what it truly is, and it will lose its power. But if you identify it as your identity, you are granting it an undeserved level of influence. The Stoics possessed a potent method for cutting through this type of mental fog. Epictetus, the Greek Stoic philosopher, reminded us that it is not events themselves that disturb us, but rather our judgments about them. The issue is not the fact that you did not feel like getting out of bed on a particular day. The issue is that you judged it as laziness and then associated that judgment with your sense of self. What if, instead, you paused and said, "I am feeling resistance today, but I am not defined by it"? That subtle shift alters everything. Identity functions as a mirror. If it is cracked and distorted by self-deprecating labels, your reflection will never appear strong, capable, or prepared. However, if you cleanse that mirror and remove the labels, you will begin to perceive yourself differently. When your self-image transforms, your behavior will follow suit. This is not magic, it is psychology, specifically identity-based habit formation. It operates in both directions. If you continue to label yourself as lazy, you will unconsciously behave like someone who procrastinates, avoids discomfort, and settles. However, if you flip the script and tell yourself, "I take action," even when it is uncomfortable, you will begin to accumulate evidence of that in small ways each day. You are not lazy, you are not broken. You have simply acquired a label that does not belong to you, and it is time to relinquish it. Therefore, the next time that voice creeps in, challenging your worth, ask yourself, would I say this to a close friend? If the answer is no, then refrain from saying it to yourself. You are not defined by your worst day, the missed deadline, the skipped workout, or the pile of unread emails. You are someone who is learning, growing, and evolving, someone who is capable of change. That shift, that small decision to cease calling yourself lazy, is not merely a feel-good affirmation. It is the first domino to fall, because when your self-talk transforms, your mindset follows, and when your mindset transforms, your actions do as well. Alter your words, and you will begin to alter your life. It is that simple. Have you ever opened your laptop with the intention of accomplishing tasks, only to stare blankly at the screen, suddenly unsure of what "done" even means? You check your to-do list, scroll for a while, perhaps reorganize your desktop for the 10th time this week, and before you realize it, an hour has elapsed, and no progress has been made. Does this scenario sound familiar? This is not laziness, it is confusion in disguise. Most people are not unmotivated, they are unfocused. It is not that you lack the desire to act, it is that you are uncertain about what exactly to act upon. Clarity, or the lack thereof, is the primary driver behind whether you move forward or stall. Your brain is a goal-seeking machine, but it is analogous to a global positioning system. If you input "somewhere better," it will freeze because it does not understand what that means. However, if you specify "walk 15 minutes after dinner," or "write 200 words today," it will provide direction. Now your mind has a target, and targets provide energy and purpose. Vague goals deplete us, while clear goals energize us. The Stoics understood this principle. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." A blurred goal is an internal fog that distorts your efforts and makes everything feel more burdensome than it actually is. This concept of clarity is not merely motivational fluff, it is rooted in neuroscience. When your brain perceives a small, specific task, it releases dopamine as a small, go-get-it, signal. That is why we enjoy checking items off lists. That small buzz is momentum. Carl Jung discussed the concept of individuation, which involves bringing the unconscious into consciousness. You cannot change what you have not made clear. The same applies to action, you cannot move toward a future that is vague. You must define it before you can step into it. Consider the difference between saying, "I want to be productive," versus, "I am going to clean the kitchen counter right now." One feels like pressure, while the other feels like progress. The key is to break down your large, daunting intentions into micro-actions. Instead of, "get in shape," say, "I will fill up my water bottle and do 5 squats." Instead of, "write a book," say, "I will write 1 paragraph about what I am feeling today." When the path appears clear, even small steps feel powerful. Do not fall into the trap of believing that small actions are insignificant. The Stoics valued steady, deliberate progress over grand gestures. Seneca reminded us, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, it is because we do not dare that they are difficult." When you avoid defining your goal, it grows in your mind until it feels unmanageable. However, when you dare to define it, even in the simplest terms, you shrink that monster down to size. Therefore, if you are stuck, overwhelmed, and spinning your wheels, pause and ask yourself, "Do I actually know what I am trying to do?" If not, become laser-focused, so specific that it feels almost absurd. That is the point, because when clarity emerges, procrastination flees. You are not lazy, you are simply awaiting a direction worth moving in. Provide your mind with that direction, and you will be astonished by how quickly it responds. Have you ever noticed that the most challenging aspect of doing anything is simply initiating it? Not finishing it, not even navigating the middle stages, just those initial 5 seconds, that awkward moment when you are standing at the precipice, gazing at your to-do list, your messy room, or the cold morning air outside the gym, and thinking, "Not today, I am not feeling it." That is precisely the trap. We wait until we feel like it, but here is a truth that most people do not want to hear: you will not feel like it, at least not initially. The feeling does not precede the action precedes the feeling. Most of us were raised with the notion that motivation is analogous to fuel in a car: you cannot move unless the tank is full. However, that is not how it functions. Motivation is more akin to the spark that ignites after the engine is already turning. You move first, and the feeling follows. Marcus Aurelius said, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I have to go to work as a human being.'" He did not say, "Wait until you feel like it." He said, "Go, show up, do the thing, even if your body resists, especially then." Carl Jung, too, believed in the power of doing before understanding. He wrote, "You are what you do, not what you say you will do." There is something profoundly psychological about this concept. When we act, we generate evidence, and evidence shapes identity. Therefore, when you arise and take one small action, regardless of how tiny, you prove something to yourself. You demonstrate to your brain that, "I am someone who moves, even when I do not want to." That shift, that evidence, is how motivation is cultivated. Consider brushing your teeth. Do you feel inspired every morning to do it? Probably not, but you do it anyway. Why? Because it is automatic. You do not negotiate with it, you do not overthink it, you simply do it. That is the energy you need to bring to everything else: action without drama, action without the emotional debate. Once you begin, the resistance will begin to dissipate. Let us keep it practical. Utilize the 5-second rule. The moment you hesitate, count down from 5 and simply go. Do not give your brain time to dissuade you. Open the laptop, put on your shoes, stand up, send the email, and do the first 30 seconds of the thing you are avoiding. That is all it takes to shift from being stuck to being in motion. No, it will not feel amazing at first. It might feel awkward, forced, even a little clunky, but that is acceptable. Starting is not about perfection, it is about movement. Once you are moving, everything becomes easier. The task becomes clearer, your mind sharpens, and the fog lifts. Action creates clarity, action creates confidence, and most importantly, action creates momentum. And momentum is the antidote to laziness. Have you ever wondered why some days you feel sharp, focused, and unstoppable, while other days feel like you are trudging through molasses with ankle weights on? The answer may not lie in your mindset, it may lie in your environment. We tend to believe that success is solely attributable to willpower, grit, and discipline. However, the truth is that even the strongest mind cannot flourish in a space that is subtly working against it. If your surroundings are chaotic, your mind will be as well. If your phone is pinging, your television is talking, your desk is cluttered, and your space resembles a crash site more than a launch pad, your brain is not lazy, it is overwhelmed. The Stoics would have been the first to point this out. Seneca said, "No person hands out their money to passers-by, but to how many do each of us hand out our lives?" We are tight-fisted with property and money, yet think too little of wasting time. Distractions are the modern equivalent of time theft. Every unnecessary ping, every open tab, every bit of background noise you tolerate is your focus leaking out in droplets. You do not need more motivation, you need less noise. Carl Jung emphasized the profound connection between the inner and outer world. He believed that the psyche is not isolated, it responds, adapts, and reacts to the space it occupies. Your external chaos becomes internal clutter. A messy room does not merely look bad, it feels heavy. It creates friction every time you attempt to begin. That stack of unopened mail, the half-drunk coffee cups, the scattered clothes are not merely objects, they are psychological blocks. They are subtle reminders of disorder, and they scream at your nervous system, there is too much to handle. Therefore, let us reverse that. Your space should support your goals. If you desire focus, create a space that feels focused. Place your phone in another room and turn off notifications, not just silence them, but turn them off completely. Designate one area for deep work and treat it as sacred. Keep it clear, calm, and simple. If you desire creativity, allow sunlight to enter, add something that inspires you, such as a quote on the wall, a plant, or a clean desk. Nothing extravagant, just intentional, because when your environment aligns with your purpose, your energy will cease being wasted on resistance and begin being directed toward action. This is not about creating the perfect setup, it is about removing friction, making it easier to start and more difficult to stop. You are not weak for being distracted, you are human. However, you are responsible for creating the space that helps you stay on track. The fewer decisions you need to make in the moment, such as where your charger is located or whether the dishes should be done first, the more energy you can reserve for what truly matters. Do you ever become so enthusiastic about a goal that you attempt to change everything at once? A new diet, a new schedule, new habits, and for the first few days, you are on fire, waking up early, working out, and planning your meals like a machine. But then it crashes. You burn out, skip a day, feel guilty, and before you realize it, you are right back where you started. That is not failure, that is the predictable outcome of attempting to sprint your way through a marathon. Transformation does not result from giant leaps, it results from small, consistent steps, from daily wins that feel almost too easy but accumulate into something real. There is a reason that Marcus Aurelius journaled about performing the work of a human being one action at a time. He understood that self-mastery is not about intensity, it is about consistency, and he was not alone. Carl Jung believed that the process of becoming whole, the process he termed individuation, was not a grand explosion of change, but a gradual integration of your fragmented self over time, little by little, day by day. That is where the true magic occurs. If you want to write a book, do not aim to write a chapter, aim to write a paragraph. If you want to get fit, forget the hour-long workouts, do 10 push-ups or go for a 5-minute walk. These, too small to fail, actions may seem insignificant at first, but they are accomplishing something powerful. You are teaching yourself that you show up, that you finish what you start, and every time you do that, you earn a bit more trust in yourself. And that self-trust is everything, because procrastination is often rooted in doubt. We avoid things not because we are lazy, but because some part of us does not believe we can actually follow through. So we delay and we distract. However, when you begin accumulating wins, even tiny ones, that doubt begins to diminish. You create a track record, you build proof, and with proof comes confidence, and with confidence comes momentum. And momentum is what destroys laziness. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." It is true that we waste time thinking that significant change must occur in one large, dramatic moment. However, the most meaningful progress is slow, almost imperceptible, like laying bricks. One brick is not much, but lay one every day, and suddenly you have a wall, a foundation, a structure strong enough to support the life you are building. Therefore, here is the real challenge: lower the bar, not because you are lowering your standards, but because you are increasing your ability to remain consistent. That is the game. Start small, keep promises to yourself, celebrate the tiny wins, write a sentence, do the dishes, show up 5 minutes earlier than you need to. It all counts, it all accumulates, because when you make winning a daily habit, when you prove to yourself, "I do what I say I will do," you stop waiting to feel motivated and you start becoming unstoppable, one small win at a time. There is this peculiar falsehood that your brain enjoys telling you, "I cannot deal with this right now." It manifests when you are staring at a blank page, a sink full of dishes, or an inbox containing 27 unread emails. That voice in your head convinces you that the task is excessively large, excessively boring, or simply excessive. So you avoid it, not permanently, just for a short while, but then an hour passes, then 2, and suddenly the day is gone, and you are carrying this silent, invisible guilt into the next day. We have all been there. What if I told you that there is a way to break that cycle without relying on motivation or willpower? Enter the 10-minute rule. Think of it as a mental backdoor into action. Instead of declaring, "I have to finish this," you tell yourself, "I am just doing 10 minutes. That is all." You are not committing to perfection, you are committing to starting, and that makes all the difference. Once you begin, your brain stops resisting and starts adapting. Carl Jung understood this well. He believed that resistance was often a signal of inner conflict, not inability. When we bypass that mental barrier, even briefly, we begin to dissolve it. It is a simple shift, but psychologically powerful. When you lower the entry cost of a task, removing the pressure to finish or to get it right, you alleviate the weight. You are tricking your brain into movement, and movement, regardless of how small, creates momentum. The Stoics held a similar principle: do what is in front of you. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, do not let your imagination be crushed by life as a whole, stick with the situation at hand. That is precisely what the 10-minute rule accomplishes. It zooms your focus in on the next small step, not the entire staircase. Here is something wild: once you become engaged in something, you usually do not want to stop. What felt burdensome before now feels manageable. You begin cleaning for 10 minutes, and suddenly you are organizing your entire kitchen. You write for 10 minutes and end up drafting a full page. That is the paradox of action: you do not feel ready until you are already doing it. The 10-minute rule simply provides you with a reason to begin before your excuses catch up. Let us say you are currently staring at a task, something you have been putting off for hours, days, or perhaps even weeks. Try this: set a timer for 10 minutes, that is all, and tell yourself, I do not have to finish this, I just have to show up. If you stop at 10 minutes, that is a win. You showed up. But chances are that you will not stop, because once motion begins, resistance loses its grip. The philosopher Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." This rule is how you bridge that gap. You say, I want to be someone who acts, and then, without overthinking, you act. 10 minutes is your foot in the door. It is how you transition from avoidance to action, from stagnation to momentum. Ultimately, it is not about how long you work, it is about proving to yourself that you can. Somewhere along the way, we began to believe that productivity is a personality trait, that some individuals are simply wired for success, for hustle, for endless output, while the rest of us are just lazy. That notion is not only inaccurate, it is toxic. The truth is that no one awakens automatically disciplined. No one is born knowing how to overcome resistance, beat procrastination, or master their habits. These are skills, not genetic predispositions. They are forged in the small, quiet moments, the moments where you decide to try, even when it is easier not to. Laziness is not a curse, it is a messenger, a signal from your inner self that something is off. You are misaligned, you are unclear, you are tired, you are scared, and that is acceptable. But it is also a sign that it is time to shift, to listen. As Marcus Aurelius put it, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The power has always resided within you, not in the perfect routine, not in waiting for motivation, but in taking one small, imperfect step towards something better. Therefore, start small, with one shift in thinking, one task completed today that you avoided yesterday, one drawer cleaned, one page written, one apology offered, one 10-minute push past resistance. Do not underestimate these small efforts, because they accumulate, they build momentum, and momentum is what moves mountains. Carl Jung believed that the most significant changes begin not with grand pronouncements, but with a conscious confrontation of what we have ignored within ourselves. Each time you choose action over avoidance, you are rewriting your internal narrative, you are changing your story. This is not about hustle culture or chasing perfection, it is about regaining your rhythm, about living intentionally, instead of letting the days blur by in a fog of, maybe tomorrow. You do not have to sprint, you do not have to impress anyone, you simply have to move, because once you move, even a little, something clicks. You feel the shift, a little more clarity, a little more control, and suddenly you are no longer stuck, you are in motion. If something in this message resonated with you, do not simply nod and scroll on. Utilize it, apply it, and take one step today. If you know someone else who has been in that same cycle, someone who merely needs a nudge, send this their way. You never know what a few words can unlock in someone's life. If you have been finding value here, if these ideas are helping you rethink your mindset or reset your momentum, there is one small favor I will ask in return: click that subscribe button. It is free, but it significantly assists us in reaching others who need this type of message. Thank you for being a part of this journey we are on, a journey of clarity, discipline, and inner peace, is not always easy, but it is always worthwhile. See you in the next one, and remember, you have got this.